This podcast deals with disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion and headphones are advised. Hey guys, so this week we're doing something a little bit special. As you know, I've been pulling in various people to narrate stories. That's worked out a whole lot better than I ever could have thought that it would have. But this episode is different. This episode, while I do still have a narrator, the narrator is also the author of the story. He's our most featured author on this whole podcast, Dark Hero, writing classics such as My Friend Has More Than Cavities and Piles of Candy from Season 1, as well as Hello from this season. But not only that, it's also the acting debut of my daughter in this episode. So I'm excited to be able to share both of those things with you. I just can't hold my excitement back any longer, so I'll hand it over to Dark Hero.
It's time to open the door to your mind, Sit back and listen to true horror. But be careful of what you allow in. Because it's time to go through the fog.
I'm Dark Hero, and this is my story, Mr. Clackity. It all started 2 years ago, when I met the love of my life in a random bar downtown. I was a bachelor in his mid-30s, stuck in a revolving door of bad relationships. I was trying to settle down, but things just never seemed to work out in my favor. That's when I saw her, surrounded by her friends who were all pounding down shots. She stood out amongst everyone else in the bar to me. Her blonde hair illuminated the dimly lit room, her blue eyes reminiscent of the ocean, and she flashed a smile that made my heart skip. I'm not sure why, but she had such a warm glow to her, something that drew me in like a moth to a flame. I ordered a couple of beers at the bar and squeezed my way through the crowd to get to her. Not a moment passed, I took my eyes off of her. I introduced myself. "Hi, I'm Ian." And she grinned at me as I handed her the ice-cold bottle. I hadn't noticed that the cap was still fastened to the tip, so I gave an awkward chuckle, twisting the small bit of metal to no avail. That's when she grabbed the bottle from me, her hand lightly brushing against mine as she pulled her car keys from her purse to pop the cap off. I hoped the room was dim enough to hide my flushed face, and I joked, "I definitely loosened it for you." She laughed, and God, did her laugh ring like soft wind chimes in my ears. She pressed the mouth of the bottle towards her lips to take a sip, and I pushed down a loud gulp as I watched her.
"Rose,"
she said with such a dulcet tone. We spent the rest of the night getting to know each other, and as the night drew to a close, we exchanged phone numbers. The very next day, we continued the conversation as if there was no pause. The text turned into more dates, and we got to know each other more and more as each day passed. After being together for months, I thought we knew almost everything about each other. Then she dropped a bomb on me that she had a little girl. Not only that, Rose was previously married to a man named Ryan, but had to raise their daughter, Lily, all alone. Unfortunately, 5 years prior, Ryan had gotten into a serious car accident and didn't make it. The night we had met was Rose's first night that she had gone out since losing her husband. At first, I didn't know how to take it, but I knew I wanted Rose in my life, so I assured her that I would love Lily. Rose introduced us slowly. Lily was just 4 years old and extremely shy, but she was the spitting image of her mother. I tried my best to get her to like me, bringing over an assortment of dolls and stuffed animals that made Rose scold me quite a bit. Despite the constant rain of affection, Lily just never seemed to warm up to me. A year had passed, and while my relationship with Rose grew, Lily kept her distance. I tried my best to be sort of a father figure for her, but I guess that made her hate me more. A whole year, and I think I can count the words she said to me with one hand. But I still held on to the hope that maybe, if she saw more of me, then maybe she'd finally accept me. A year after meeting Rose, though, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. We didn't have a big wedding. We'd settled things at the courthouse and got things rolling. We didn't afford our dream house, but we did get a decent-sized apartment for the three of us, just until we could find our forever home. Rose and I didn't have a honeymoon, but we never left the honeymoon phase. All the while, I just so desperately wanted for Lily to be happy with us. But she just played in her room all by herself. Soon, Lily's 5th birthday came, and I was willing to pull out all the stops to give her the best birthday ever. That morning, I surprised her with her favorite breakfast of chocolate chip pancakes with tons of syrup and whipped cream. She was absolutely stone-faced. I drove her and Rose around the city, willing to buy her anything she wanted, but not a single positive reaction. Rose could see that I was absolutely heartbroken and sat in the back seat with Lily to ask her what she wanted. We were both surprised to hear that she wanted to see her dad. When Rose asked Lily why, she kept her eyes downcast and shrugged her shoulders. I'm not sure why. Maybe she just wanted some closure. Was that something a normal 5-year-old would even want? We sat in awkward silence for one long, agonizing minute, until I asked Rose for directions to the cemetery. Before I knew it, I was turning the car around, taking the love of my life and her daughter to her previous husband's grave. The perfect day I visioned in my head was beaten with reality. The image of perfect weather and smiling faces was replaced with cloudy skies and headstones. We made our way through the cold cemetery, and when we finally reached Ryan's grave, I turned to see Rose's face. She tried to keep her composure, but I could tell that the memories were flashing through her mind all at once. I wanted to hold her hand, but pulled back when she crouched down onto her knees, picking up dead leaves and twigs around the headstone. Beloved son, husband, and father. Those words etched across that stone made me feel out of place in our lives. I looked towards Lily, her eyes glued to the ground. I wondered what was going through her head at the time. Rose began to let out light sniffles when Lily finally spoke.
He's not here.
Rose held her for a bit and sobbed, while Lily continued to stare at the earth beneath us. After about 5 minutes, we decided to return to the car, and hopefully we could salvage the rest of Lily's birthday. I placed my chilled hands into my jacket pockets and walked ahead of them. I suddenly felt like a stranger, as though I didn't belong in their family. I jumped when I heard Rose yell.
Lily!
I quickly turned to see Rose chasing Lily back into the cemetery. I snapped back into the current moment and dashed towards them. Rose suddenly stumbled and fell to the floor. I stopped to check on her, but she insisted I go after Lily, so I did. This was the most I'd ever seen Lily move. She was running full speed, weaving through grave markers. Before I knew it, I lost sight of her completely. I stood there for a moment, surrounded by the dead, looking all around, but I just couldn't see her. Lily! Lily, where are you? I shouted, my lungs struggling to catch breath. I staggered deeper through the graves and heard something completely foreign to me. The sound of Lily laughing. I followed the high-pitched giggles to find her crouched behind a damn headstone, covering her eyes with the biggest smile on her face. A toxic mix of emotions began to bubble inside of me, and I gripped her arm and yelled at her. What in the world are you doing? I don't remember at all what I said to her after that. Hell, I don't want to remember. but a string of curses must have left my lips. Lily's eyes were filled with tears, her face twisted into pure hate, and she muttered under her breath,
I hate you. I don't want you.
Those words ran through me, and I heard Rose running behind me. She scooped up Lily into her arms and squeezed her tight. Then the three of us walked back to the car in silence. When we returned to the apartment, none of us spoke a word. I'm not sure Rose heard what I said to Lily. Maybe she did, but we never talked about it. I do know that I was filled with guilt and regret, so I slept on the couch that night. That night, I had a nightmare. I dreamt that I was running through the cemetery again, looking for Lily, but she was nowhere to be seen. I was screaming out her name, but no noise came out. The world, my dream, was filled with a deafening silence that even now makes my stomach turn just thinking about it. Then, a noise shattered the silence. The sound of something clicking and clacking that made my ears hurt. I tried to shield my ears with my hands until I felt something hot gush onto them. I looked down at my hands to see that they were filled with blood. The noise grew louder and louder, to the point that I let out a silent scream. I jolted awake from my sleep. My whole body was drenched in sweat, and I was struggling to catch my breath again. My chest felt like a battleground as my lungs and heart were struggling to calm down. I sat in darkness for a while, the silence filling me with anxiety, until I heard a noise. That same fucking noise I heard in my nightmare. Except it was faint, muffled, followed by the delightful squeal of a little girl. At first I thought I was still dreaming, until I noticed the clacking sound persist. Then Lily's laughter came right afterwards. I shut up and tiptoed towards her bedroom, slowly pressing my ear against the wooden door. And sure enough, I could hear it. That noise. Then Lily laughing again and saying,
I love you.
I'm not sure what was going on, but I quickly opened the door. Lily let out a scream. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor with no one else around. The surprise on her face turned into the angry expression I saw earlier that day, and she yelled,
Go away, go away, go away!
over and over again. Before I could react and try to calm her down, Rose was already there, pushing me aside to get to her little girl. Rose looked at me with narrowed eyes and asked what was going on. I tried to explain that I heard a noise coming from Lily's room. Then Lily pulled her mother's face to her and said,
He tried to hit me.
Rose's head snapped back to me and yelled.
What?
I tried to tell her that I had no intention of hurting her, that I wouldn't even lay a hand on her, but Rose wasn't hearing me. Rose got up with Lily and stomped towards our bedroom before slamming the door. I heard her voice through the entryway.
Don't get upset because you can't be her dad.
I stood there, shocked, in the middle of Lily's room. That clacking noise was still present. The next morning, I did my best to apologize to the girls. Lily stayed in her room while I talked things out with Rose. She apologized too. What she said wasn't called for, and she just wanted everyone to get along. I kissed Rose and assured her that I would get through to Lily. That morning quickly turned into night. Throughout the day, I would pop my head inside Lily's room to check in on her, looking for a chance to go in and apologize. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, except that she was smiling and laughing more that day than I'd ever heard the entire time I've known her. Rose snuck in behind me as I watched Lily talking to a space in the corner.
Apparently, she made a friend yesterday.
Rose whispered. I turned to give her a confused look. What do you mean? I asked. Rose shrugged and explained to me that every now and then Lily would come up with imaginary friends. She didn't think much of it, and assured me that eventually the imaginary friends would just disappear. That was news to me, but Rose was completely unfazed by it. She patted my shoulder, telling me to leave Lily alone as she walked back to the living room. I continued to peek into the room, and I saw Lily stop everything that she was doing and slowly turn her head towards my direction. That clacking noise could be heard inside the room, and suddenly, this door slammed into my face. A sharp pain came from my nose, and I saw a bit of blood splattered onto the white door. My nose wasn't broken or anything, but it fucking hurt. I quickly stepped to the bathroom, and in the mirror I saw blood was trickling down my nostrils. I cleaned myself up, and Rose came to check in on me, but I told her it was nothing. Lily was staring at me from behind her mother's leg, with a blank expression plastered on her face. Lily began to mouth something to me. Maybe she wasn't, but I swear she said,
Hate you.
A couple of days had passed, and Lily's behavior was completely different. Any moment she was at home, she would be closed up in her room, and whenever I would check in on her, she would start screaming at me. Rose would have to come in and intervene, and it started to put a strain on our marriage. Then, one day out of the blue, Rose grabbed me by the collar of my shirt and told me that she was going to call the cops on me. When I asked her what she meant, she pulled out her phone to show me bruises all over Lily's back. I felt the blood drain from my face. I told her it wasn't me, but Rose said that Lily told her that I did it. I didn't know what else to do or to say after that. Everything I said felt like I was digging a deeper grave for me. We argued, more and more, and I even tried to confront Lily about it. I asked her why would she say those things to her mom, to which she replied,
Mr. Clackity doesn't like you.
My heart began to beat in my chest. Who is Mr. Clackity? I asked. She looked at me with those expressionless eyes and simply said,
My friend.
I felt my body begin to shake as I heard that noise. Clack, clack, clack. I let out a stutter. Why doesn't Mr. Clackity like me? Lily turned her eyes towards the empty corner of her room and sat there for a moment and spoke.
He said he doesn't fucking want you here.
I stumbled back and lifted myself up, my eyes drifting towards the corner. Then she spoke again, her voice bursting forth.
You deserve a woman like that in your ear.
I heard something move from the empty corner of the room. Thuds of heavy footsteps walking towards me. I felt a pressure slammed against my chest and I flew backwards through Lily's door and into the hallway. Rose appeared and asked me what was going on. Then Lily's bedroom door slammed shut. Tears filled my eyes and explained everything to Rose. Of course, she looked at me with disbelief. Something is wrong with Lily. Something's trying to get me. Get to you. Please believe me. I thought these things would get through to her, but Rose just looked at me like I was fucking crazy. Rose was silent, as if trying to process everything that I was saying, but said,
I think you should leave.
Those words caused my whole world to come crashing down on me. I didn't know what else to say. What could I do to persuade her? I just grabbed my keys and got into my car and drove off into the night. I spent hours just driving around in circles, thinking about all that happened. I started to believe that I was actually going crazy. I pulled into a random parking lot and just sat there, till my phone started ringing. I grabbed my phone and saw Rose's picture on the screen. I quickly wiped tears from my eyes to compose myself and answered her call. Before I could say anything, my ears were filled with blood-curdling screams. Rose? Rose! I shouted, but the screaming continued until suddenly, silence, followed by that fucking noise. I slammed my foot onto the accelerator and peeled out of the parking lot, towards the apartment, or home. As soon as I got to the apartment building, I jumped out of the car and raced up the stairs. When I got to the front door, I realized that it was unlocked. I slowly twisted the doorknob and opened it, but I was met with a black void. The whole interior was completely dark, not even a sliver of light inside. I stepped through without a single thought. The safety of Rose and Lily were the only things on my mind. I wafted through the darkness, unable to see anything besides shadow. I tried to call out to Lily and Rose, but no noise passed my lips. It was just like my nightmares. A hellish silence followed by that damn noise. Following the source of the noise, I stepped through the dark void and made my way through what seemed to be the hallway towards the bedrooms. My insight seemed correct, as the noise grew louder and louder. I reached out to feel the handle of Lily's bedroom door, and I forced it open. It was definitely Lily's room, except all the lights were off. I looked in pure terror to see Lily and Rose being held in the air by some sort of monster. It was over 6 feet tall, with pale skin that stretched tightly over its whole body. I could see its bones through its skin, and they were vibrating, the joints shaking to make that clacking noise. I thought it had no eyes, no mouth, but its face was just flesh covering the holes over its face like some sort of grotesque mask. Whatever this thing was, it was waving Lily and Rose around by their hair as if they were dolls. Every time it moved, its bones clacked underneath its sheared skin. It turned towards me, and underneath the flesh that covered its mouth, I could see a sharp, toothy smile. Its elongated arms lifted Lily and Rose to its face, as if it were taunting me. I didn't know what to do, but I rushed towards it, hoping to use my body to slam into it. My plan went south when I suddenly dropped the girls and grabbed me instead. Before I even had a second to realize what was going on, my body was slammed onto the floor. The entity was now over me, its face mere centimeters away from mine. Through the clacking noise it made, I could hear a disgusting wet tearing sound. Before my eyes, it was opening its mouth, causing the flesh that was covering it to tear open. It opened its mouth wide, bits of tattered skin around a sharp-toothed maw. A cold, bone-chilling breath hit my face, and a black tongue came writhing out. It took a hand and forced my head to look at Rose, then forced me to look at Lily, as if it was showing off that they were his. It forcefully pulled my head to its face, and it fucking smiled at me. I had no idea what else I could do, but I refused to give up. If this thing was so preoccupied with me, then maybe it could give them a chance to run. I took my hands and gripped them around its throat, and I shouted with all my might. This time, I could hear my voice call out to them. Rose! God, Rose, get up! Get up and get Lily out of here! I used all of my strength to try and keep it preoccupied, but it was toying with me, snapping its teeth next to my face. Then I heard a shuffle behind me. My eyes turned towards the sound to see Lily slowly getting up. Her face was filled with terror when she saw what was going on. She let out a scream, but I cut her off. Lily! There wasn't anything else I could do. Maybe I could let this thing take me, and maybe that would distract enough for Lily to at least run. I took a deep breath and looked towards her and said, I love you. That was all I could muster. She looked at me with wide eyes and quickly rushed to her bed. My gaze was fixed on her when I saw she pulled out something from underneath her pillow. I heard a loud snap, and her little voice boomed in the darkness.
Get out! I don't want you here! Leave my mom and dad alone!
I felt its weight dissipate from on top of me, and as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. I rushed towards Lily, picked her up, and brought her to her mother. The next few minutes passed and Rose finally came to, and as soon as she did, I lifted her to her feet. We got the hell out of the apartment and went to a nearby motel to recollect ourselves. We miraculously came out with minor injuries. The next morning, we got together to try to figure out what had happened and what that thing was. I'll try to convey the next bits of information as clearly as possible, and take it as you will. Lily says that she usually finds her imaginary friends everywhere. Sometimes they'll give her something so that they can go home with her. I couldn't believe it until she showed me an old wristwatch with its face completely shattered. Lily said that Mr. Clackity was calling out for her to play, and that he gave her that watch so that she can take him home. Mr. Clackity told her that I was a bad person, and that he would take care of her mom instead. At first she refused, until the moment I snapped at her, and she accepted his offer. I know that this story is a lot to take in. I can barely believe it myself. But again, take it as you will. It's been a while since then, and I'm happy to say that things have gotten a bit better. I'm not sure things will ever be okay, but one step at a time, I suppose. I'm just glad that Lily is finally opening up to me. Rose and I assure her that she no longer needs those friends that she sees. And hopefully, maybe one day, things will be better and I can truly be her father for her.
Through the Fog is recorded and edited by Haptic. Intro and outro by Katie Kemp. For more stories, go to www.throughthefog.org. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so keep your eyes on the fog.